Hello, everyone. Sorry, I've been away for a little while. That is because I was thinking about how best to articulate my admiration for 1981 British television production Artemis 81. In the end, I decided I would just mostly improvise and read about a series of sources related to the film. The writer of this film's script, David Rudkin, his own notes on the film, which are from his website, well, archived from his website, where this is the Wayback Machine, is how we're accessing his site, as it were. And we're also going to look at some user reviews from IMDb because these are, I believe, if some of these are from implied to be people who saw it around the time or closer to its release date and have remembered it and submitted a review of it in the 2000s or 2010s, be having had it in their mind for such a long time, and it's made an impression on them for so many years. And I thought that would be a fascinating, it is a fascinating perspective. So what is Artemis 81? Well, according to the IMDb little plot sentence here, it's the epic battle for the future of mankind is fought between an angel of light and an angel of death. That sounds quite corny, doesn't it? By the way, they're helped out by the protagonist of the film is actually a man played by Hywel Bennett, and Hywel Bennett, you may recognize him from Twisted Nerve. I don't know if anyone has seen Twisted Nerve. The Angel of Death is portrayed by one Roland Curran, and the Angel of Light is portrayed by Sting. I have to admit, I, like many others, am not a fan of Sting's music. However, I'm not a big fan of the Police either. That's the cliche. Oh, Sting's solo career, but the Police, that was great. Yeah. Ghost in the Machine is fantastic. I love that slick art pop, Hugh Padgham. I know that's gonna rub a lot of people the wrong way. What? The guy who produced those big loud drums in the Genesis and Phil Collins recordings? Yeah, I dig that sound. I fucking love it. Synchronicity was too much for me, I have to say. But we're not gonna get into that nonsense. Artemis 81. Let's read what the writer David Rudkin had to say about Artemis 81. Again, for BBC Pebble Mill, producer David Rose, an ambitious 3-hour venture, originally conceived as a co-production with TV Denmark, hence the Danish dimension to the story. Gideon, a successful novelist, insulated from reality and emotionally arid, is deeply and ruefully loved by two people, a woman musician and a man who teaches film. But Gideon flinches from all human contact. From an alien planet, an angel of love descends to try to unlock Gideon's emotions and save him. But an angel of death comes not far after, seeking to imprison Gideon in his frigidity. At the climax, high within the tower of an abbey, while an organ recital proceeds below, Death's trap is so sprung that, if Gideon succumbed to him now, the whole world would be destroyed. An existential morality, told in terms of gothic fable, with powerful organ music, coming from the woman's part in the story, and Hitchcockian allusions, refracted from the film obsessions of the other man. I can see why some disparage it now as a pretense fest by a high aim author. Okay, folks, let's all be happy little epsilons, and aim low. I just want to make a little aside here. I couldn't fucking agree more. Claims that, in regard to film or in regard to music, where it's just oh, these things is too lofty, it ought to be more straightforward, the whole tarnishing of progressive rock back in the day, rock should be straightforward and basic, and what's with all the shoulds? Who are you, and why haven't you put a fucking, let's be real, let's just fucking, who are you? But where people positively respond to it, it's to its prodigality with images and its mythic charge that flows into parts of us that meaner contemporary TV drama, and cinema for that matter, do not even know are there. I acknowledge that the piece is uneven in the writing and in the realizing. I feel also that some of the playing lacks inwardness. In a very tight shoot, technical and budget considerations predominated, thus the director had little time to do the deeper exploring of the actors that is necessary, so that they were working mainly on technique. By contrast, Sting, nervous and awkward in his first legitimate role, is moving in this very nervousness and awkwardness with no technique as yet to trust to. He has to use his emotions. For director Alastair Reid, I think the shoot was a hellish experience, especially during the mere 3 days we had for the Danish location work. On the North Sea ferry there and back, there were shots Feddy had only one chance to get right. He needed all his commitment to the piece and all his formidable technical mastery. Some of the futuristic design is too close to 70s Doctor Who for comfort. I need to make an aside here. What are you talking about? That's amazing. Third Doctor is best Doctor. Unity era. That's the Doctor who I love the most, to be frank. But to be honest, so was my own technical imagination somewhat limited there. Another feature that dates this piece is that the author doesn't have a mobile phone or word processor. He comes from those few years where the technological cutting edge for a successful author was the IBM Golf Ball typewriter. Some of the film's visual devices derive from features of this machine: the Gothic inscription that vanishes letter by letter backwards, the conversion of text into a symbols code. It's a lesson for an author to ponder, that where my own imagery is at its most original, that's where it is most thrillingly realized. The dream sequence of its stained glass window and vanishing inscription, looking out over the sea, the nightmare city where the deconstructed Gideon is taken to be reborn, Birmingham and Liverpool skylines disturbingly fused, the terrifying cathedral and the murderous set piece of the couple hiding in its great bell, the alien planet with twin suns. The glass shots are beautiful and unafraid, the insolent red telephone kiosk on the wild green headland, the monstrous ocean liner dwarfing the dockside street, an affectionate filch from Hitchcock's Marnie. There was a lot of goodwill behind this production. On the creative side, everyone involved gave it everything that they had. Then came post-production. The producer David Rose left BBC to take up a senior post at then new Channel 4, and although he kept a watch on things, in effect we lacked his controlling presence. I nursed a particular grievance about the editing. The up-and-coming young editor I thought right for Artemis, and who wanted to do it, was not even considered. This was a big project, and so was allocated to the senior editor, with whom I was never granted so much as a discussion. On Pender, I had been given reasonable access to the edit and the dub, but my responses had been sought and sometimes acted on. On Artemis, I was allowed to see no rushes, no rough assembly, no rough cut. My first invitation to a sighting was together with members of the publicity department. I protested and was granted a viewing before that, but it was a formality. As I feared, much had been done to Artemis in the cutting room and dubbing suite that I could never have endorsed. But it had been an extraordinary enterprise, and in its making some beautiful things had happened for me. Among the giants I was privileged to work with here was one of Hollywood's great actors, Dan O'Herlihy, who had been in Carol Reed's classic 1940s IRA film Odd Man Out, and later played Robinson Crusoe for the legendary Buñuel. And then there was Sting. As an author not celebrated and not glamorous, I was shy of my first meeting of so iconic a being. Sting reversed the situation with a gesture of true grace. The megastar asked me for my autograph, on the script of an old play of mine he had seen years ago in Newcastle, before he was famous. Then there was the Hitchcock dimension. For the film lecture sequence, we needed the climactic 360-degree tracking shot from Vertigo, and homage to it is to occur at Gideon's and the loving angel's farewell embrace. I will say the lecture from Vertigo in this film was one of my favourite moments in it. I thought it was absolutely extraordinary. The way it utilizes Vertigo as relevant to its thematic currents is just phenomenal. It's like what 12 Monkeys did. It summons what Vertigo is in our lives, makes it relevant within this fictional narrative as well. You can do that in a very uncontrived and phenomenal way. I guess if you're going to use Vertigo, chances are you're going to be the kind of person who would do it tastefully, you know what I mean? It's not like, someone's going to, I don't know, they might use like pop songs as like a really kind of tacky metatextual reference, intertextual reference, you know what I mean. I'm not going to try and think of the correct term there because I feel like I don't have to. It's like I'm above it. Anyway, even if we could have afforded financially to incorporate that sequence, it was not physically accessible. They're referring to the 360-degree shot here. Together with several other mid-period Hitchcocks, Vertigo was under some legal embargo at that time, and not even the old British Film Institute black and white 16mm print could be hired, even for reference purposes. Alastair Reid's brilliant solution was to have the film lecturer draw a storyboard of the 360 sequence and use that for his class, but Hitchcock's sequence is optically very complex. As Kim Novak and James Stewart embrace, the camera slowly circles sideways around them. As it does so, the hotel room background dissolves to the contrasted background of an earlier embrace, then becomes the hotel room background again as the camera's encircling movement comes to rest. Our storyboard would need to represent that circular tracking shot precisely, stage by stage as it proceeds. I was working from memory of the film, which neither Alastair nor I had seen for over 20 years. To prepare such a storyboard, we needed to study the sequence itself, somehow, somewhere. Through the good offices of a friend in Paris, we were granted a private and clandestine showing of the film at the Cinematheque. Afterward, in an editing suite there, Alastair quickly did sketches of the sequence as he passed it through a moviola while I stood guard at the door. Nice. For the organ music, I specified for the Gwen's audition piece a late work by Brahms, Elegiac and Troubled. for the climactic scene at the Abbey, shot in Southwell Minster. I specified among the recital pieces works by Buxtehude and Nielsen for Danish connection. But for organ music at the climax itself, we needed a customized piece that advanced in short, regular modules, growing in intensity, specifically composed to the shooting script for the sequence, and so composed that the montage of images could be edited to fit it. I recommended Gordon Cross for this, a composer with whom I had worked before, see music. I devised a 12-note theme for him, a demonic distortion of Brahms' theme heard earlier, and using all semitones of the chromatic scale once each, such an order that they evoked an onward-moving classical harmony. On this, Gordon built a passacaglia, an ancient form in which increasingly complex variations build up over a recurring 4 or 8 bar bass that never changes. On screen, the music is interrupted at its climax by the catastrophe from the tower. Gordon later composed an ending for it, and now it stands as an organ piece in its own right. Passacaglia, Artemis. He's a composer whom producers and directors should use much more. He understands film and knows what film music needs to be. Alastair Reid went on next to direct a technically much less spectacular piece, The Secret Servant, that quietly contains, in Jill Balcon's confession speech, one of the most remarkable long takes in the business. A living demonstration that control and mastery do not need to be demonstrative. He also, soon after that, directed the first Inspector Morse, in which he lavishes a skill and a precision worthy of his beloved Hitchcock, and demonstrating something that Hitchcock's mere imitators will never understand. It's not a question of copying Hitchcock's effects. It's a moral matter of framing an image of that emotional accuracy that makes its inner meaning visible. I'll question that. I think the handling of the emotion and the true power of the text and the way he handles his characters, it's just like, that's overrated fluff, frankly. You wouldn't have felt that way if it weren't for the technical precision. You can copy Hitchcock and make it really good. You've just got to be careful it's not sterile. You've got to really feel it. You've got to go above and beyond. I think those who critique De Palma too much, I mean, if you find his violence or the role of women in De Palma's films distasteful, fair enough. I'm actually not gonna argue with that. That's just personal opinion. But the whole Hitchcock thief thing, I don't know, man. Like, who wants to, like, look at a series of rules and then determine that, okay, this is how we're going to read films? Well, De Palma took from Hitchcock, so he's not allowed. It's just like, he did better than Hitchcock, admit it. Just because, like, some older film professor told you that, you know, the opinion you're supposed to have is this one, doesn't mean it's the right opinion. That guy hasn't watched new films in decades. Anyway, Artemis 81 is now available on a BBC DVD. It's unfortunate that the DVD's producers have issued it under an inaccurate title. The 81 is as in the number of a distant star, not the abbreviated number of a year. The IBM golf ball typewriter featured in the film is my own and is now in the IBM Museum at Chandlersford. More of a fantasy picture than a science fiction feature, really. Artemis 81, it roots this ancient mythological battle in the contemporary kind of urban/old world environments of the United Kingdom at that time, and in that respect it feels very much like the unit era of Doctor Who, although more polished, I would say. Artemis 81 was the way the film's mood, I thought, was phenomenal. I think the cinematographic philosophy was really, really enriching. I found it involving, frightening, and although sometimes it appeared as though they were... Yeah, it's interesting that Rudkin mentions his issues of the film's editing. There are times when I wonder, did they bother explaining how they got from there to there? There must have been a scene in between here, and they needed to cut it down to 3 hours. I'm not certain. Anyway, to be honest, I feel like I've said enough about Artemis 81. If you ever get the chance to view it, go in knowing as little as possible. I ought to have just said, just watch the film, don't know a thing about it. But hopefully one would still get a good impression of this interesting film otherwise. Sorry for the potentially subpar video. Have a great one. It's been a bit odd lately. I feel well. I guess that's what's odd. Have a great one.